Get her out of my cockpit. A black woman has no place commanding an Apache. Colonel Reeves' voice cracked through the hangar, echoing off the steel walls. Every mechanic froze mid-step. Captain Althea Morgan, her helmet tucked under her arm, felt the sting ripple through her chest like a bullet wrapped in shame. She didn't flinch. Her dark eyes locked onto him, steady and unblinking. Behind her, the desert sun blazed at the hangar doors, casting her shadow across the polished concrete floor, long, unwavering. Reeves smirked as the others avoided eye contact, pretending to be busy with tools and charts. You heard me, Captain. You think this is some kind of diversity showcase? This is combat aviation, not charity. The air reeked of oil and arrogance. Althea stood silently, the rhythmic hum of engines behind her like a heartbeat of resistance. Every word he spat reminded her of the academy halls where whispers trailed her steps. Quota pilot, token representation, pretty face and a helmet. But she had earned every stripe through fire, grit, and sleepless nights buried in manuals, while others drank and bragged. Her hand brushed over the Apache's nose, feeling the cool metal beneath her fingertips. This machine didn't care about color. It only responded to skill. She smiled faintly, the smallest rebellion. Reeves noticed and sneered. Don't get too comfortable. You'll wash out soon enough. We both know what happens when people like you get too ambitious. Outside, the wind picked up, lifting sand into lazy spirals. Her fellow pilot, Lieutenant Jason Hale, approached with a tight smile. Don't take it personally, he muttered. He's like that with everyone. But she caught the hesitation in his tone, the way his eyes flicked downward. Pity, not solidarity. Everyone? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. The next morning's flight simulation was brutal. Reeves made sure of it. He loaded her test route with unnecessary turbulence, artificial malfunctions, and misleading radar signals. It was supposed to be impossible to complete under standard time. She knew this was his trap. He wanted her to fail publicly. When the rotor blade spun up, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Every lesson from her father, an air traffic controller in Georgia, who had faced his own ceilings, came rushing back. Fly clean, fly calm, let the sky decide. She lifted off, the machine responding like an extension of her body. The desert stretched endlessly, gold bleeding into gray. Minutes later, alarms blared in her headset. Engine 2 failure. She recognized the pattern immediately, not random. Manual override sequence scrambled. Reeves had programmed the test himself. All right, she whispered. You want to play rough? She rerouted fuel manually, flipping switches faster than most could think. Down in the control tower, Reeves leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What the hell? How's she stabilizing that bird? His technicians exchanged glances but stayed silent. The blip on the radar that should have descended was instead climbing, smooth, graceful. She was rewriting his trap into a masterpiece. Her voice came through the comms, calm, unhurried. Control, this is Falcon Lead. Simulation complete. Request permission to land. Reeves' jaw tightened. He couldn't admit she had done it. Not her. Not the woman he had publicly mocked. Negative, he barked. Run it again. You must have bypassed the system. Althea landed anyway. Dust swirled around her boots as she stepped down, helmet under her arm. Reeves stormed toward her. You think this proves something? He hissed. Luck isn't skill. She leaned closer. Luck didn't rewire your trap midair, Colonel. His face flushed crimson. Around them, the other pilots watched silently, respect flickering where doubt once lived. That night, she sat in her barracks, staring at a faded photograph, her mother, in a nurse's uniform, smiling under a cardboard sign that read, Equal work, equal worth. Althea whispered to it. One day they'll know. but the loneliness crept in like static. No matter how many records she broke, the whispers never stopped. Weeks passed. Mission orders arrived, a joint exercise with foreign dignitaries observing. Reeves handpicked a flight team and forgot to include her. When she confronted him, he leaned back in his chair. "Relax, Captain. Optics matter. We don't want to send the wrong message internationally, do we?" His smirk widened. "You can brief the others instead." Her jaw clenched. The others averted their gaze. Even Jason Hale, the one who had once called her the best stick in the squadron, said nothing. "It's just politics," he muttered, not meeting her eyes. That was the moment she realized silence could be the loudest betrayal. The morning of the exercise, one of the Apaches malfunctioned. Hales. Critical software glitched mid-takeoff. The bird spun dangerously close to the ground. Althea ran across the tarmac, her boots slamming against the concrete. "Shut down engine 1, she shouted, waving her arms. Reeves yelled back, "Stand down. You're not authorized." But she ignored him. She climbed the ladder, forcing open the access panel, and dove into the cockpit side system. Her fingers flew across the controls. The rotors screamed overhead as the machine steadied. Hale stumbled out, shaking, pale-faced. The crowd of observers erupted in confused murmurs. Who authorized her to interfere? Reeves demanded, his voice cracking through the chaos. The senior general, who had just arrived to observe, turned his gaze toward her. His sharp eyes, decades of command behind them, lingered on the name patch across her chest. Captain A. Morgan. "Sir." Reeves stammered. She disobeyed direct orders. "Colonel," the general interrupted, "that woman just saved one of your pilots from being turned into a fireball. Why wasn't she on your primary flight team?" Reeves' lips twitched, searching for words. "Diversity assignments, sir. She's not qualified for..." The general raised an eyebrow. "Qualified? She holds triple flight certifications and top combat simulator scores in this division." The silence was suffocating. Reeves' throat worked silently as his pride collapsed inward. The clock was ticking, and the situation was spinning out of control. Will the protagonist's courage be enough to overcome the systemic injustice? But before we see the shock of the reveal, take a second to tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Your support helps us share stories of true courage. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get into the full story. The general's words hung heavy. Reeves stammered again. She's been lucky, sir. Nothing more." The general looked toward the Apache she had just stabilized. "Luck doesn't rewrite software mid-flight." His tone turned colder. "Reeves, do you know who her father was?" Reeves blinked. "No, sir." General Althea Morgan came to reply. "The man who designed the emergency control algorithm your entire fleet uses." Gasps rippled through the ranks. Althea said nothing, eyes lowered, her calm slicing through the shock like a blade. Reeves' mind spun. Every insult, every order barked in arrogance. Every attempt to undermine her now felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He had been publicly humiliating the daughter of the man whose brilliance kept his pilots alive. And worse, the one pilot who had just proven she could outperform his entire roster. The general turned to Althea. "Captain, take her up. Full operational test. Show me what this bird can really do." Reeves opened his mouth, but one look from the general froze him in place. The roar of the rotors filled the air again. Althea's hands were steady, her movements poetry in motion. The Apache lifted gracefully, sunlight flashing across its blades. She pushed into maneuvers Reeves had declared impossible. Barrel rolls, tight dives, precision targeting at impossible angles. The general smiled faintly. That's mastery. When she landed, Reeves approached slowly, his arrogance leaking away like oil from a cracked engine. "Captain," he muttered, voice brittle, "I may have misjudged you." She looked at him, unreadable. "May have?" she echoed softly. His eyes flickered with something close to fear. He wanted forgiveness to cleanse him publicly, but her silence made it worse. The watching soldiers knew he had been exposed. For a moment, justice felt complete. The general's words, the public humiliation, the shifting stares. It was everything she'd endured turned back on him. But then, as protocol dictated, the incident report came in. A technical officer quietly noted, "Captain Morgan engaged without command clearance." A procedural violation. The general sighed. "Regulations bind my hands for now. Captain, you'll be grounded pending review." The crowd murmured in disbelief. Reeves' relief was palpable. He even managed a half-smile, thinking the storm had passed. But the inevitable twist came days later. The investigation revealed the malfunction that nearly killed Hale had been caused by maintenance shortcuts ordered by Reeves himself. The same shortcuts he used to cover budget misuse. His downfall was written not by Althea's hand, but by his own corruption. A system he thought protected him finally devoured him. He was stripped of command, publicly reprimanded. Althea, reinstated with commendation, was assigned to lead the training division, rewriting policies to ensure no pilot, regardless of race or gender, could be sidelined by bias again. Still, she noticed the looks didn't vanish overnight. One new recruit, a young blonde lieutenant, smiled at her during orientation. "Ma'am," she said earnestly, "you're such an inspiration. I just hope I can prove I deserve to be here too, not just because they need more of, you know." Althea's expression didn't change. She simply replied, "Prove it to the sky, not to them." The girl blinked, unsure what she meant, but nodded anyway. As the hangar lights dimmed and the night bled across the horizon, Althea walked past a row of Apaches, each reflecting faint traces of starlight. Her reflection looked back, strong, calm, unbent. Somewhere, on the other side of the base, a group of trainees laughed softly. One of them muttered, "She's good, but she got lucky." "They always do." The others chuckled, their voices fading into the hum of engines. Althea paused, eyes narrowing slightly toward the sound. Then she smiled, the same quiet, defiant smile she'd worn the day Reeves tried to erase her. The fight, she knew, was far from over, because even when the sky was clear, the storm was never really gone.